Just minutes before his life came to a sudden and heartbreaking end, he did something no one expected. He reached out to Henry Winkler, not as a Hollywood star, but as a longtime friend. What he said wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, and wasn't meant for the world to hear. Yet today, those few quiet words carry more weight than any headline ever could. Many people recognize his face, remember his performances, and feel a sense of nostalgia when his name is mentioned. But very few know what was going on in his heart in those final moments. That last message to Henry reveals a side of him the cameras never captured. The vulnerability, the bond they shared, and the haunting calm of someone who may have sensed the end was near. This isn't just a story about losing a familiar face. It's about friendship, unspoken pain, and a final moment that still lingers long after the lights went out. John Ritter and Henry Winkler weren't just television stars. They were comfort figures, the kind of actors audiences felt they knew. Week after week, they invited millions of people into their living rooms, delivering laughter, warmth, and a sense of familiarity that few performers ever achieve. Fame followed them quickly, but what truly defined both men was not stardom. It was kindness. In an industry often driven by ego and rivalry, Ritter and Winkler were known as two of the gentlest, most genuine souls Hollywood had to offer. When John Ritter passed away suddenly in 2003, the loss felt deeply personal to fans. It was shocking, heartbreaking, and painfully unexpected. Yet before that final day, Ritter managed to leave behind an extraordinary body of work, performances that continue to live on long after him. Henry Winkler, on the other hand, is still with us today, still acting, still inspiring, and still carrying the same warmth that first made audiences fall in love with him decades ago. What many people don't realize is that behind the laughter and the legendary roles, these two men shared something rare in Hollywood. A real friendship, not a publicity connection, not a passing acquaintance, but a bond built on respect, encouragement, and shared values. Considering their reputations as two of the nicest people in the business, it almost feels inevitable that they would find their way to each other. Still, stories like this stand out, especially in an industry that can be ruthless, isolating, and emotionally exhausting. Today, we're diving into that friendship and into the quiet, emotional moment that makes it even more unforgettable. Just hours before John Ritter passed away, he shared words with Henry Winkler that would stay with him forever. Both men rose to prominence during the golden age of television comedy in the 1970s and 1980s. Henry Winkler became a cultural phenomenon through his role as Arthur the Fonz Fonzarelli on Happy Days. With his leather jacket, motorcycle, and effortless confidence, the Fonz became more than a character. He became a symbol. Viewers were drawn to the show's nostalgic vision of 1950s America, and Winkler's cool, magnetic presence turned him into an instant icon. Decades later, he remains one of the most respected legends in television history. John Ritter's rise was just as powerful, though wildly different in tone. His breakout role came on Three's Company, where he played the unforgettable Jack Tripper. Ritter's comedy was physical, fearless, and perfectly timed. He fell downstairs, slammed into doors, and turned chaos into comedy gold. Across 172 episodes, he made audiences laugh until it hurt, and in the process, became a household name almost overnight. Their friendship began most unexpectedly. According to Winkler, they first met at the 25th anniversary celebration of the American Broadcasting Company, just before Three's Company was set to premiere. They were seated near each other, chairs literally back to back. At the time, they were strangers, but Winkler had recently seen the promotional clips for Ritter's new show, and he was impressed. Moved by genuine admiration, Winkler leaned over and quietly told Ritter how funny the promo was and how brilliant his physical comedy looked. That small, sincere compliment meant everything. As Winkler later recalled, that single moment of encouragement sparked a friendship that would grow into something deep and lasting. Even before that night, fate had already brushed their careers together. Both men had appeared as guest stars on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, though in different years and different episodes. Winkler appeared in a 1973 episode titled The Dinner Party, while Ritter showed up in 1975 in Ted's Wedding. They hadn't met then, but that shared history gave them an instant connection, proof that their paths had been circling each other long before they finally spoke. From that chance compliment to years of mutual respect, their bond quietly grew, leading to a friendship that lasted until John Ritter's final hours, and a moment Henry Winkler would never forget. On September 11, 2003, John Ritter was doing what he loved most, rehearsing lines on the set of his hit sitcom 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. The Disney lot in Burbank hummed with its usual rhythm. Laughter between takes, crew members moving lights, actors running lines. It was an ordinary workday, the kind Ritter had experienced countless times before. Then, without warning, everything shifted. Ritter suddenly complained of severe chest pain. Within moments, his color drained, his body weakened, and he began vomiting, soaked in a cold, heavy sweat. The lighthearted mood vanished as fear rippled through the set. This wasn't fatigue or stress. It was something terrifyingly real. Paramedics were called, and Ritter was rushed across the street to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, the same hospital where his life had begun 55 years earlier. Doctors initially believed he was having a heart attack and treated him accordingly. But time slipped away, and his condition worsened with alarming speed. It soon became clear they were facing something far more deadly: an aortic dissection, a rare and catastrophic tear in the body's main artery. Emergency surgery was launched immediately, a final urgent attempt to save him. Despite every effort, the damage was irreversible. That evening, John Ritter was pronounced dead. News of his passing spread quickly, leaving his castmates in shock, his family devastated, and millions of fans heartbroken. Hollywood mourned not just a beloved star, but a gentle soul whose warmth, kindness, and laughter had quietly shaped generations, and whose absence was felt the moment the laughter stopped. Ritter's last words. Henry Winkler was there that day, an almost unbelievable twist of fate that still feels heavy in retrospect. He had just joined 8 Simple Rules as a guest star and was on set rehearsing with John Ritter and the rest of the cast, including Katie Sagal, Kaylee Cuoco, Amy Davidson, and Martin Spangers. The atmosphere was familiar and calm, filled with the quiet repetition and focus that comes before cameras roll. It was meant to be an ordinary rehearsal, one of countless workdays in a long career. No one could have imagined it would turn into a final memory frozen in time. During a short break, Winkler and Ritter drifted into conversation, talking casually about a play they had recently completed together, Neil Simon's The Dinner Party. It was the kind of easy, unguarded exchange shared by old friends who didn't need to fill the silence. There was laughter, comfort, and the sense of 2 actors enjoying a moment between responsibilities. But then something shifted. Ritter began to sweat heavily, an early sign that something was terribly wrong. The change was quiet and almost invisible, subtle enough to be brushed aside in the moment, yet haunting when remembered later. Winkler later recalled that Ritter gently ended the conversation, turning to him and saying, "I'm sweating. I'm going to get some water." Winkler replied lightly, unaware of what was unfolding, "I'm going to memorize my lines so I don't stink up the room." Those simple, everyday words, spoken without fear, meant in humor and normalcy, became the last things they ever said to one another. Not long after, Ritter was taken to the medical center across the street. Within hours, he was gone. What remains is the quiet weight of that final exchange, a reminder of how swiftly ordinary moments can become goodbye, and how fragile even the brightest presence can be when life changes without warning. In the weeks following John Ritter's sudden passing, voices from across Hollywood rose in remembrance, but few tributes felt as intimate as the one shared by his longtime friend Henry Winkler. That December, Winkler reflected on first meeting Ritter at ABC's 25th anniversary celebration in 1978. He remembered how John didn't simply enter a room, he filled it. His presence, Winkler recalled, seemed to spill into every space, powered by an almost unstoppable energy that felt joyful, electric, and rare. To Winkler, Ritter's spirit was more than charm or humor. It was a kind of life force, an intelligence and warmth so big it made you wonder how one person could carry it all. His comedy came so naturally that it felt limitless, as though laughter was trying to escape him at every moment. Yet behind the public image of the lovable, carefree, funny man, Winkler knew a quieter truth. As a close friend, he saw a more serious and searching side of Ritter, a man who questioned deeply, who carried responsibility with intention, and who never drifted through life as lightly as his screen roles suggested. Winkler described him as principled and deeply committed, qualities that shaped him into a devoted husband and an extraordinary father. Ritter's sense of duty, he believed, grounded his generosity and kindness. Even years later, Winkler has said the loss never fades. He remembers John's impeccable comedic timing, the kind so precise that even the same joke, told again and again, would somehow feel brand new. More than the laughter, though, he misses the man behind it, the friend whose presence once made the world feel brighter and whose absence is still felt every single day. At the turn of the new millennium, John Ritter found renewed joy on the stage, returning to live theater with the same heart that had defined his screen work. In 2000, he appeared on Broadway opposite his longtime friend Henry Winkler in Neil Simon's The Dinner Party, taking on the role of Claude Pichon. The production enjoyed a strong run at the Music Box Theater, and Ritter's performance earned him a Theatre World Award the following year, a quiet but meaningful acknowledgement of his talent and dedication. He continued exploring intimate stage work in 2002 with J for J at Los Angeles' Court Theater, sharing the spotlight with Jeff Kober and Jenny Sullivan under the direction of Joseph Fuqua. In 2003, Ritter made what would become his final stage appearance in All About Eve at the Amundsen Theater, unaware it would mark the closing chapter of his theatrical journey. Away from the footlights, Ritter's life was shaped by love, family, and complicated transitions. He married actress Nancy Morgan in 1977, and together they raised 3 children before their marriage ended in 1996. A few years later, Ritter found a new beginning with actress Amy Yazbek. They married in 1999 in Ohio and welcomed a child, born exactly 5 years before Ritter's sudden passing. Professionally and personally, their lives are often intertwined. Yazbek appeared alongside Ritter in the Problem Child films and in multiple television roles, sometimes as his wife, sometimes as his romantic counterpart. Those shared performances now feel especially poignant. Small snapshots of a partnership that extended beyond the screen and into a life remembered for warmth, devotion, and a love that endures beyond loss. In the painful aftermath of John Ritter's sudden death in 2003, his widow, actress Amy Yasbeck, sought answers through the courts. She filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hospital and the doctors who treated him, believing crucial warning signs had been missed. According to the suit, Ritter was initially treated as if he were suffering a heart attack, when the real cause was far more catastrophic. Yasbeck also included Ritter's cardiologist, alleging that an enlarged aorta had gone undetected during treatment 2 years earlier, an omission she believed could have saved his life. Henry Winkler, still shaken by the loss of his close friend, was asked to testify and agreed without hesitation. On the stand, his words were not technical or accusatory. Instead, they were deeply human. Winkler spoke less about medicine and more about the man he had known. Ritter as a devoted father, a loving husband, and a presence defined by warmth and decency. He also revisited the heartbreaking sequence of that final day, recalling their last conversation before Ritter was taken to the hospital, and the devastating call he received later that night, confirming John had died. Winkler told the court that any conversation we had wrapped around his children, the pride and the love. He described John and Amy as perfectly matched, two halves working in quiet harmony. After testifying, Winkler addressed the press but carefully avoided assigning blame, choosing reflection over judgment. In the end, the jury ruled in favor of the defense, concluding that neither the hospital nor the doctors was legally responsible. What lingered wasn't a verdict, but the enduring portrait of a man whose legacy lived on through love, laughter, and the memories of those who knew him best.